When you're ready, right? That's Mario. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Vincent Community Board meeting for Monday, the 9th of September. I have apologies, please, Wayne, from Martin McPherson and from Tracy Patterson. I'm able to move those. Jaden can second them. Thank you very much. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We move now to our public forum. And Andy, welcome. Welcome back to the table. Is Paula going to be joining you today?
It depends what you want me to talk about.
Well, it says here that you're here to talk about central stories and nights and stuff.
Okay. Central stories.
Okay.
Right. Yes, I'm Paula, and we've got Graham, ADMI chair.
Welcome. Would you like to join the table as well, Graham?
Yes, thank you.
You're most welcome.
Right. Okay. I'm just going to talk. You'll hear more about me talking about to start shortly. But yeah, we've just got our performance report prepared for our AGM tomorrow for ADMI. And the numbers haven't changed too much from the budget that we submitted as part of our application for your funding for another year. Yeah, we almost doubled our trading income, which is really good, obviously, thanks to the great work from Paula. And there's a wee bit of movement in annual membership with the way we're doing that. So overall, 25% increase in income, but it's like a 34% increase in expenses, which we're feeling the same as everybody else in regards to costs of stuff. So I will hand over to Paula now to tell you more about what we've done the last year and what's coming up.
Just to finish off the figure amount, our door count before the library moved in, or just as the library was moving into the end of June, went from, for last year, went from 22,672 to 41,316. So we certainly almost doubled those figures. As a lot of you know, we've had an action-packed year full of events, exhibitions, holiday programs, school groups, community initiatives, and supporting current community groups in their endeavours. A couple of examples of this is helping and supporting Wollon achieve their Community Day at Central Stories. If you weren't there, it was highly successful. And providing our galleries for free too. The Keep Alexander Clyde Beautiful Group to celebrate their 35 years of service to this community. The 7 Central Otago primary schools to have their Festival of the Arts, Vanuatu Language Week, Eden Hall, and so many more little bits and pieces, as well as helping facilitate in numerous school groups over this year. Coming up with the holiday programs is the annual Blossom Festival, and on the heels of this, the spring holiday program. They've always proven very successful, and a lot of children are now seeing it as an annual. They're seeing the same faces, so it's great. Now until the end of the year, there's not a space in Central Stories that's not been booked. Coming up after Blossom is the highly anticipated launch of the CM100 Heritage Trail. This will be 100 objects on display throughout the region, with each of the 5 museums showcasing 20 objects that reflect the stories from our area. This will run from the 16th of October through to the end of April 2025. The opening will be at Central Stories on Wednesday, the 16th of October, so please lock in that date. It'll be great to have you there, all of you there, to support this wonderful collaborative initiative that will highlight Central Otago's rich history over the summer. We are booked with exhibitions until June 2025 and have even booked 2 months in 2026. The annual Arts and Market Day, showcasing the region's amazing food and wine, will be held early December. And yes, Santa has been booked. We will be ensuring that Santa's grotto will yet again be set up in the museum. A small exhibition in December celebrating Central Stories, turning 65 years. Who would have thought? And so it goes on. A diverse range of events are also booked in. Behind the scenes, we've finished upgrading the shop and entrance into the museum. The shop now reflects everything Central Otago. We'll continue to strengthen and brand the shop going forward. We have started the daunting task of entering 12,500 items in our collection onto eHive. Although records were transferred over to the new system, the old system was so full of mistakes, incorrect, or held no information about the object at all. So we're updating these records and assessing the estimated 1/3 of our collection that has never been accessioned. We are also upgrading museum exhibits and adding new ones for the CM100 trail, plus cleaning up tired but popular exhibits like the rabbit hole. One example, Ross Cowie has painted a new entrance to the rabbit hole free of charge. It now reflects crawling into the Central Otago rocky landscape, just in the process of changing the carpet to a brown carpet. That's the flooring extra, reflecting more of an interior rabbit hole. We have finally become a community, cultural and heritage hub. The momentum continues to grow, and thanks to the VCB's continued support, hopefully, we will continue to go stronger and stronger. And I've got a second left. Knowing that this is not the VCB's round, but if any of you know me, you know I won't be able to help myself. My dream is that the area that the library is currently using be put into an information kiosk. Whether we like it or not, every tourist and their companions and dogs drift into Central Stories, asking or assuming that we are the information centre. Although I think that eyesights, as they were, are a thing of the past, people like a landing pad when they come to the new area to get themselves up to speed with where they are and what they're going to do. And Google only takes you so far. So an information kiosk will be awesome. My volunteers already do so much in informing the people who do come to Central Stories for information, but everything that is available. And we're all incredibly lucky to have these amazing volunteers. B, I'd like to install a permanent interactive science area for the kids, and C, utilise any remaining space as a place for the many amazing community groups to utilise to strengthen our commitment to the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. You're on a roll.
That's my clap.
Has anybody got anything that they would like to ask of Andy or Craig?
More of a comment and just to acknowledge the really hard work that you do. We all know that you put so many hours into this and it's showing.
Thank you.
It's a good work.
I'm pleased that we're able to acknowledge that each time you pop in, Paula, and also to you, Andy, and to Graham and the wider team, especially your team of volunteers.
Brushes.
You're just going from strength to strength, and I love the new ability for people to call in and buy all things Central Otago in one location, which is great, especially with Christmas coming up, just around the corner, and the variety of exhibitions and things that are coming through the museum. It's just wonderful. Thank you so much.
Have you any thoughts how an information centre would work? And I know there was a little bit of commission on when it was eyesight for accommodation. There was a bit of a kind of commission.
Yeah.
Probably.
I think that's all gone now, to
Yeah.
be quite honest, Tony. I think basically an information kiosk, I mean, we're just really lucky to have an amazing group of volunteers that lift us over the threshold, I suppose, because their local knowledge is so amazing. And so with an information kiosk and just the amazing group that we have here to be able to, better than myself, because I'm not from this area traditionally, to impart all that knowledge, I think we're in a good place to start off with anyway. It'd be just great if we could start something.
Perfect. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate it. We now have Ashley Peters from Alexandra Toy Library. We have us online interview. Do you want? We usually just do 5 minutes for the whole lot.
Oh.
Do you want to hang fire?
And you've got 2 applications, so he gets 2 for 2 different entities.
Right. Just wear so many hats.
I'm so
Do you want to? Is Ashley right to wait for a few minutes? Yep, Andy, do you mind? Ashley's just got somewhere else she needs to be, and she was up first. But if you don't mind hanging fire, I will give you your 5 minutes very shortly. Thank you.
Can you hear us okay, Ashley?
Oh, you can unmute there. Ah, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear us okay?
Yep. Yes, I can.
great.
Yeah. So just a pre-warning that I'm at play centre. And my little one didn't want to be left with the teachers, so he's just outside running around with me. And there might be an influx of kids.
Quite all right.
He's right. Yeah. So sorry, there might be a little bit of interaction.
Fine. Far away.
Great. Yeah. So especially thanks for considering us with this grant application. The Toy Library has around 70 to 80 members at present, families that is, and so
I'm running out of service perhaps, actually.
sorry.
You might just be cutting in and out of
Sorry,
service.
that cut out.
Yeah.
Okay,
Maybe
I'll keep
just-
trying.
If you.
You could try turning your video off and that might save a bit of data.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and so just the normal with all community organisations, increasing expenses, really starting to push the budget for us, especially rates, and we just increased our insurance cover because we weren't really covered enough to, if anything were to happen, that we would actually be able to keep the toy library going. So that also was a bit higher than we expected for this year's budget also. And we also employ a librarian who's a mother of 3 children, and the small amount of income that she gets is really helpful for her. And so it's great that we can support the community in this way as well. And there's also, of course, wages constantly increasing, and we would like to try and stick as close to the living wage as possible, not just the minimum wage. So that's, yeah, we do what we can in terms of trying to support our librarian. And then I don't know how many other organisations find that it's hard to get volunteers to help with fundraising, but often the volunteers that we do get for the toy library are mothers who also part-time or full-time and multiple children, so support the toy library with fundraising is quite limited. So we do what we can. We did have a quiz night since the application, and we raised $1,700 from that, and we're hoping to. It went really well, and we're hoping to run another one before the end of this year because we've had people asking if we can, and we thought why not if that first one went so well. So that will be really great to increase the savings account, hopefully, to help with planning for the future. We don't spend too much on toys at the moment just because we're trying to keep afloat with covering expenses. And we have got a grant from the Rotary, which was $900 this year for toys. So that will be really helpful. And being able to replace old toys and get in new toys is really important for retaining our membership as well as attracting new members. We're hoping to we're hoping to sorry.
It's all right.
Yeah, he's all right. He's just having a cuddle. We're hoping to increase neurodivergent toys because we've had quite a few members of the public asking for more toys that are help to support occupational therapy with kids. You know, it's been diagnosed more often with different learning difficulties, and it's quite hard for the community, especially with the range of demographics we have, to be able to access these types of resources. So it would be really great if we could increase this area of the toy library. Yeah, it's that's pretty much everything that I wanted to cover. Top of my head.
Great. Thank you very much, Ashley. And I think it would be a real benefit for the community to see more variety in the toys offered, especially in that kind of realm. Has anybody got a question for Ashley or a comment? Wonderful. Thank you very much for speaking to your application, Ashley.
Great, thank you.
Cheers. How's she saying? Is she coming in online?
Yeah.
Haven't heard from her yet? No. Perfect. Nigel Murray, welcome.
Thank you. Okay, Tony. I've been here once recently, so you probably remember the map that we travelled out at the time. No, I just want to remind you that the Lower Manaboo Reserve Working Group is an altruistic group, a lot like you people, I suspect, for the most part. And that's responding to the disrespectful treatment of our reserves and landscapes. And we are aiming to set a better example for the users of the community. You will have seen, because I see in the agenda, the Lower Manaboo Reserve Committee has been for years been reporting on the littering and the damage to the grass areas and the vehicle movements and tree felling and dumping of carcasses and so on. That still continues today. But despite that, there are plenty of people enjoying the reserve: swimming, paddleboarding, kayaking, ice skating, horse riding, dog walking, picnics, and just to get out of town, really. There are no facilities on the reserve that I know of that are given any maintenance. There are no rubbish bins, toilets, or structures. So there's no positive evidence of care for the reserve for most people. And so for those of us who are regulars, we want to show by planting trees that the community does care and that we benefit everybody's enjoyment of the reserve. In previous years, we've been informed that the remaining wildling conifers were due to be felled to complete the reserve clearance project. It was begun quite some years ago, maybe 2017. But since the remaining pines weren't, clearance wasn't undertaken before the end of the subsidy period, we looked around for a low-cost way to try and achieve the CODC wildling conifers policy in 2023-24 and came to this grant application, basically. We know that there may well be a reserve management plan if we can persuade you to carry on with that particular part of the long-term dream, but that's not now, and it would take a while before any of that would take action. And we would obviously make contributions to that consultation for projects just like we're doing now. Because the site suits restoration. We ask you to consider this grant application to be an example of what could happen in that management plan. So the reserve, still existing, I believe, until later on today, probably. The Reserve Management Committee does support this application, and there is a, pass that now. There's a list of letters in support of our projects, starting off with the Reserve Management Committee, who currently still exist, I believe. We've been told that the immediate large-scale farming operations on both sides of the reserve support our project, and that we understand those owners have been in contact with CODC staff. We've canvassed a number of users of the reserve. The regulars, we meet up with lots of other people there, and those letters are evidence of that support that they're willing to put on a piece of paper for us, about 10 other groups. And our volunteers are just waiting for somebody to say, let's get on with it. We want to just remind you that the project is to establish an island of native vegetation to start this transition of the reserve from a former pine forest and grassland area. And the area we're proposing is a very highly visible area of the reserve. And I want to share those photos of the drone photos of the reserve. This one is the area shown in blue, is the former area that was previously being cleared of pines, and the area in red we're proposing is that little bit on the end. And when you look at it from Rushcutters Bay, the ice skating area, it's that area. Right. There's not many trees, that's why we chose it. It's largely grass, that's one of the other reasons. And it's really accessible to people. People will see it as soon as they come into the property. It's right at the entrance, not the entrance, so it's right past the gateway that currently exists. We've got some OSC funding, which we need your support for, but it's tied to the plants and the planting. So we needed to, and obviously they didn't give us everything we have asked for. So we're coming to you for further support to cover the ancillary costs for cleaning up after the pines are cut down, and the preparation and protection of those plants, some preparation and protection of those plants once they're in the ground. Our experience at LMR and at Half Mile Reserve is that the ring fence is the cheapest, most efficient way of protecting more than a few plants. Even the planting we have done at the moment is being hammered by the rabbits, which have recurred since a couple of years ago when the last poisoning was done. And a little bit of humans damage, I suspect, and wind jeopardises those nets that protect those trees. So this application is largely to allow us to ring fence an area to get on with the next stage of the project.
Thanks, Nigel. Do you want to, is there anything, last comments that you wanted to make?
We have until mid-November 2024 to pick up the OSC grant. We are required to provide the OSC with a management agreement documentation on CODC for us to be able to proceed. We intend to use the summer for site preparation and for the planting to happen in the autumn of this season. And we're looking for your support as BCB/CODC for any organisational support for compliance. We're not an independent operation. We want to be a subset of BCB's processes.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Any questions for Nigel? We really appreciate you coming in the work that the group has undertaken last time.
Amazing, eh?
Taking the glasses on now, it's a bit of a Clark Kent thing, but I'm now representing the Stella Charitable Trust, and I'm not sure how we do this, but if you just flip through to the next slide. So this is all about creating Central Otago International Dark Sky Reserve, and the imperative for rather expediting this is the if you just move on, Wayne, the big aurora eclipse in 2028, which is there's lots of news articles earlier this year which coincided with the big event that passed over North America, and the expectation that that will bring a lot of people here in 2028. Next slide, please, Mike. So this is just a quick scan of what happened to like the cities that were in the eclipse zone in regards to tourism for that period earlier this year. So there's lots of other data about the billions of dollars of tourism revenue that are generated, but that's quite stark explanation of it. Next one, please, Mike. I've got quite a bit, so so that's the line it passes, which should be just over near Butcher's Damway, and it is going to be quite low in the sky, so it'll be perfect for us photographers, maybe less so for scientific, because it's going to be quite close to the horizon. Just fingers crossed that we get the weather for that. Next one, Ray. So can we create an international dark sky reserve before this happens? Next one, Wayne. So I introduced this table to you a couple of meetings ago about other international dark sky reserves that there are around the world. And the one I want to pick out and compare us to for this talk is Wairarapa, because it's one of the newest and it's also in New Zealand. It's twice the population that we've got, and what we're looking at is something of a similar size if it is Vincent Ward, but if it's a combined wards, it would be considerably smaller. Next one, Wayne. So what it take for them to achieve that status? We started in 2019. By 2021, the local council implemented lighting provisions. And by 2023, they have achieved the international dark sky status. So that's 4 years. So remember this eclipse, we haven't got time for another Olympics before this eclipse, so it's going to come around quite quick. So keep moving on, Wayne, please. So just to show you how close it is to Wellington that this domain is. The highest sky quality is class 1 portal, so none of the park is class 1. So next one, Wayne. All this is publicly available, and I'm going to share the information in the domain where you can find this information for yourself. But just comparing a couple of the towns that are within. Carterton is quite a bit bigger than Alexandra, and that's within the dark sky reserve. And you can see that some of the actions they're taking to reduce light pollution there, that's what the -2% is. Move on again, Wayne. So this is comparing the two areas. As you can see straight away from this light pollution map, there's far less light pollution in this area already compared to what is down Wairarapa. Move on, Wayne, please. So this is showing that you can get the best skies you can get in the planet sort of thing. I don't think you even need to go as far as Chateau Creek. So there's great vast areas within Central Otago that are as good as it can be. Move on again, please, Wayne. And within the towns, this sort of measure is quite specific. For the Alexandra one, I'll just put it outside the front door here. But you get slightly different readings if you go to the Central Stories Museum or down by the bridge. But the figures we're getting, so 7.2 is the value basically for the town, and it's improving. And I think that's thanks to the work that you guys have done in taking away them big lights on the new bridge, coming on the old bridge. Keep moving, please. So there's direct comparison. So the closest big polluter is Queenstown, which is quite a bit further away than Wellington is from Wairarapa. And Alexandra compares is better quality already than what Carterton, which is in their reserve. Just move on again, Wayne. So this is another thing we wanted to bring to you. So one of the rules from Dark Sky International in regards to a Dark Sky Reserve is the boundaries of the core can't be just arbitrarily drawn to sort of omit Alexandra, for example. So they encourage the embrace that area so we can get that improvement. I mean, that's the thing about light, it travels quite efficiently a long way, which is the point of us doing astrophotography, because that's billions of miles away. So yeah, so protecting one area, like Central Otago, if you don't protect Alexandra, you're impedimenting what views you're going to get from up the Wairarapa. What's it called? Maniwaki? Yeah, so anything looking down at the Aurora or the Milky Way from them areas, if you let Alexandra just take off and become like Queenstown, it's going to detriment that. So it's important that Alexandra is included in that. Keep going, mate.
Have you just got a couple more slides, Andy?
I'm going to quick. So there's my summary. So we're already better than Wairarapa, and Alexandra should be included. Keep going, Wayne. And things we're doing already as Winter Stellar is trying to get the word out about, because we always get asked what can we do by people that are attending talks. So now we can tell them to look after their own lights and what sort of lights are suitable. Keep going, Wayne. We've got some pull-up banners designed. I'm waiting for the outcome of this meeting before we press go on printing for that. We've got Central Lakes Trust to pay for that. Keep going. Right. So to summarise, we've got the eclipse coming, and the people that are going to come for that are the people that we want to stick around for an international dark sky reserve. They're going to be people that are interested in what's up there. So let's make this place a protected area, maybe the biggest international dark sky reserve in the world. And I think that will benefit everybody, including tourism and everything else. I've exhausted myself. So what I'm asking you now is for a statement of support from CODC and DCB. The application was for funding for the initial application to Dark Sky International. I know the funding is not there, but if you give me that statement of support from CODC and DCB, I'll take it to Otago Community Trust, and there's lots of other private sponsors that want to support us, but that exercise is pointless without your support. So that's what I'm asking for, a statement of support from CODC and DCB, and we'll press go on that application.
Easy. The brochures that you've got from the general public want to know what they can do. Where could they get those from?
From Central Storage Museum. It's an excellent community book, which things can and just then data and facts that I included on the previous slides is on this sheet as well, and where you can go to have a play with that light pollution map. So yes, thank you.
Quite exciting to think. Solar reflection. Wonderful. Right.
Sorry,
Roger. Yeah.
if I can make a statement there, I've had queries from the United States regarding 2028 eclipse, people wanting to come. Wow. And so that could be a very, very significant event for our district.
Excellent. So they're staying at your house. Right, great. Thanks for people to start sharing out their spirits. Mike Coggan and Olivia from. Sorry.
I'm still trying to get remember just. Yes.
Yes, please continue. Welcome.
So Olivia and I represent Otago Cricket Association, and firstly I'd like to say thanks for what was last year the first of 3 years support on the Vincent Community Board for our Super 20 here, which included six matches of professional men's and women's cricket, and we've committed to the region through last year and over for the next 2 years or 2 summits. That is free-to-air television, so probably the first in 20 years where a competition at professional level is being broadcast live and free-to-air, which makes it a pretty unique proposition for events and sport, particularly in the region. So we have some of the best crowds across the country at that time of the year. So we've committed to Otago country for a reason, because we know that the crowds are here, the holiday makers are here, and there's a really good traditional support from the community for the sport of cricket. So, but that comes at a cost. So we know that we're bringing the games here. We're getting between 2,000 and 2,500 spectators to the matches. So we're getting our players who are engaging in coaching clinics, and we know that comes at a cost. It costs Otago 140,000 to bring the games here, exclusive of the broadcasting cost, but the loss to us has been 40,000, and that was inclusive of the goodwill provided by this particular community board, and where we got $10,000 last year, which was most appreciative. We see the cost benefit of bringing matches here being a positive, particularly the opportunity for regional tourism and just the promotion of the region. We had 2 local, you could call them celebrities, and Warren Lees and Paul Allison last year, who commentated on each of the 6 fixtures. So they gave the region a really good, in terms of good light, in terms of the way they spoke through that broadcast. So we think this year we could do a little bit more through the staff in terms of promotional videos, etc., that can come up through breaks and particular fixtures. There's two Super Smash double headers every day. So men's and women, each of those are 3.5 hours. So that's 7 hours of free-to-air television. And that this year it's based on 27th, 29th and 31st of December that those fixtures are. So there's really good opportunities there. We know that the broadcast then gets taken to 7 countries around the world, of which one of the biggest by some distance is India. We'll be getting 25 million live stream views of each of these games across the country. So there's a massive market there. So I think the promotional part of this event, not only just sort of providing an event opportunity in terms of your calendar, the opportunity to market around the world is there, particularly knowing that we go into America, the South Americas, into the subcontinent, in particular through South Africa and Australia. So we would like to think that the community board can continue to support where it can the part of the cost of us bringing this event here, but regardless of that, we're committed through 24-25 and into 25-26 for the last 2 years of the broadcast deal to continue to bring the games to Molyneux Park.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And it was a very enjoyable afternoon there, watching, enjoying the hot dogs, the ice creams.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. Any questions?
If I to also mention, I suppose from an economic impact point of view, we've got 230 direct participants, whether they be players, whether they be staff, whether they be the management, whether they be officials that are actually here for across those full 6 nights. So there's the bed nights alone without the F&B and the other, and without including those people that would travel from outside the region, which would probably be between 20 and 25% to actually watch Auckland, Canterbury or the Otago sides play through that time is reasonably significant at that time of the year for local businesses. And we have 11 local businesses that we've got on board through last year and the next 2 years in terms of sponsoring part of the costs of looking after this event as well. So we know that it's well supported through the region.
Absolutely. I just had one question around the scaffolding, which was obviously a substantial cost for you.
Yeah.
And not a particularly local firm, or do they have the ability to save on that way?
Yeah, that's one of the areas we're looking at. We're unfortunately the only genuine scaffolding firm that can do an event of this size to that magnitude is based in Queenstown. And last year, because the sight screens here at Molyneux Park weren't fit for purpose in terms of televised Super Smash, we were at the last minute forced to increase our costs by having that sight screen covered by black material that was 14 metres by 7 metres in height alongside the broadcast tower. So that's why the broadcasting costs went from what were budgeted at 25 through to $60,000 as a last minute cost to us and we couldn't. So this year we're trying to mitigate some of that. And hopefully the broadcast of us having only one that all matches played on the one strip will reduce the size of the sight screens necessary, which may reduce the cost, but it won't be significant. But it's what it is. Yeah.
So if you've got a string of commitment to the game, have you got a bit of a plan in the back of your mind about the long-term infrastructure?
Yeah, we're talking. So at the moment, we're meeting with the Otago Cricket Association, Country Cricket Association shortly. So Lindsay Breen, who most people will know in here, they're trying to find a solution. Unfortunately, to build permanent structures like that, they're not 150,000, they're more like 600,000. So we're committed, regardless of these three, we've been committed long term, we're committed into the future anyway. So we do have to make sure that somewhere between Otago Cricket, Otago Country Cricket and the community, we can try to find, that's the only issue we've still got remaining, and that's those sight screens, which are too small. But we don't have a solution right now. That's something we're working on. We're committed coming here regardless of the sight screens, unless it's TV. The current sight screens just manage around the Warringah Fitness through NZC, New Zealand Cricket, but that doesn't make them genuinely fit for purpose.
I wasn't thinking permanent structure, I was thinking more something that's located.
Yeah, that's a bit, it's a bit, just because of the pure size of these things required now with, people walking past, and we're required to build something that's still going to cost us $500,000. It's probably going to be permanent. The temporary structures, there'd be a lot of risk involved with, even putting them up will probably cost just about as much over the course of 5 or 6 years as building from new. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for yeah, fingers crossed. Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
It's been long time.
You can call it.
Charge it, do you mind? Right, I'll put you on speakerphone.
Hi, Dash.
Right. Can you hear us okay? I got. Okay.
Well, there's a bit of a delay, so you might need to turn off the sound on your computer, otherwise you'll hear us in stereo. Brilliant. Is it better? Yes, thank you. Right, fire away.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tash, and I am the manager of Puna Rangatahi, Alexandra District Youth Trust. I would like to say, can you all hear me?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Firstly, I'd like to say a huge thank you for previously supporting us. That has enabled us to pay our rent to our landlord and continue to support the rangatahi in our district. Sort of a wee bit about what we do. We run many different programs, but what we're currently doing for the youth in the Vincent Community Board, we have wellbeing programs for primary school students. These are called Elevate and Kaihanga. We are seeing an increase for our one-on-one mentoring service, and we currently have 15 young people taking part in this. Increasingly, we'll be having requests for sort of around that 14 to 15 age group, and they're coming through with higher needs than what we have experienced in the past, for many different reasons. We run a Dice Breakers night, which is a board games night, and that has been hugely successful in integrating kids back in who have suffered sort of anxiety and social awkwardness. And just a way to bond with, make friendships via playing board games. It's really surprised me how successful that has been. And we also run our drop-in services in Alex and Roxburgh, and they're always fun and chaos and lots of fun. But kind of in a nutshell, that's how we roll. We are a not-for-profit, so we receive no government funding. So for us at the moment, the landscape's kind of changing because there's going to be more and more people fighting for the same funding that we are currently applying for, just because those government contracts are there to pay salaries for staff. But as we all know, the needs increase when the funding is cut. But yeah, we would, very grateful for your support, and hopefully that it will continue in the future.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Taj. I agree, it has become a very challenging time for not-for-profit organisations, and the increasing needs that you're seeing, I think, is starting to become more recognised. Has anybody got any questions for Taj at this time? Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Tash.
Cheers. Bye. Peter Sutherland, thank you for your patience. Come on in.
Kia ora, I'm Lena Sutherland.
I'm here on the behalf of the Alexandra BMX Club. So we put in a grant application, or our treasurer did, and acknowledged that it was quite a brief application. She actually started it and saved it thinking it was a draft and then couldn't get back in. So hopefully I can answer a few more questions that you might have had. So we're fortunate to get the hosting rights for the BMX South Island titles in January, which will bring about 300 to 400 riders to the area, but from the 10th to 12th of January, plus their families and supporters. So we have hosted it on 3 occasions in the past, but quite aware that costs have increased significantly since that time. What we have applied for is a bit of a cost to help fund some of that key infrastructure that we need to host the events, so like fencing and toilets, PA systems, as well as lime to cover the track. So a bit about our club currently, we have 19 families in our club, so we're quite a small club and we're really reliant. I know many of you are aware of the facility. So it's council land, but we maintain the BMX track off our own back. So just yesterday we had 6 families there from 9:30 till 2:30 working on lawn mowing and gardening and weeding, and so it's a lot of goodwill from local families and businesses. So what we're really hoping for with some funding is to not drain our coffers, so that we still have some ongoing funding to provide a facility that is open to the community at all times. So we're aware that the track is used by many more people than just our 19 families who are members, and we keep it in good condition. We keep the track so that it's safe to ride without ruts in it, and that it's well kept up. Our long-term goals are also, we are in the process of applying for funding for more native plantings on the sides of the tracks and around the berms and stuff. And obviously, if we are having to cover all of the costs that we need for the infrastructure for Souths, it's going to make that kind of long-term stuff more challenging. So we're really just looking into that support to help us provide a well-maintained facility that the community can keep using, and that will help us offer a good event in January without putting us under too much pressure. And the 19 families and the few businesses in Alex that are really, really supportive of us.
Thank you. Do you have a provision whereby families who use the track but aren't part of BMX Club can make a contribution or a donation?
We don't currently have anything there, but I know I have seen that, like I know we went over to Wanaka recently, and like Wanaka Mountain Bike Club, I did see that they had like a QR code on a board there at Sticky Forest, so that people could, if they wanted to, just go and do a contribution. So I don't know if potentially that might be something worth us looking into while we're looking at some new signage, is getting something put up in that regards next to our, probably just me, the challenge I see is that our track gets used a lot by scooters and remote control cars. We've seen the odd motorised vehicles on there as well, and so that's the stuff that we're having to fix often. So I'm not sure, I would love to think it's going to get acknowledged and used if we put a board like that up.
Absolutely. I think even if in the meantime you could put something out there with a bank account or something like that, you could make a contribution to, especially acknowledging that you've been trying to run what is quite a large scale event. Yeah. Any questions, Belinda?
How many members in the club?
So we've got 19 families, which I generally count it by family because even if a family's got 4 children in the club, there's only 2 parents. So we've got 19 families, some of which are solo parents as part of it at the moment. Yeah, so I just got that up-to-date number from our treasurer this morning. And we unfortunately had to cancel our Give It a Go night last week, but we've got another one tomorrow night. So if anybody's kids or grandkids are keen to give BMX a go, we are trying to make it a push to have it be a lot more of a fun, fun time. It's great for the kids to learn bike skills, which is so big in our area. And I know from my son, he's improved immensely just from doing it. So it is a fantastic sport, just for social get together. Yeah.
Certainly seems to be a substantial amount of commitment from those 19 families. Just by the one I know.
Just a bit of time.
You're next to the pump track?
Yes, yeah, so we're hoping that's going to be really used. So some of our members were on the pump track committee as well. So we're hoping that's going to be really good for our track maintenance over winter and coming years, having that open. So we're quite looking forward to that. But yes, so it's in that same area. There's the skate park, the pump track, the road, and then the BMX track.
Thinking, is there more damage? Are you needing more repairs on your track?
With the pump track there? No. We're actually hoping it will have a bit of an opposite effect because the pump track will be sealed next winter. So hopefully over those wet seasons, we'll have less work. I mean, I don't know if that's worked in Cromwell, but I can see Dylan shaking his head. But yeah, we're hoping that will have a positive impact on the track. Yeah. Fingers crossed. We'll comment on that next year. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you.
Brings us to the end of our very popular public forum this morning, which is awesome to see because it's always a wee bit sad when there's no one. Moving now, please, to the confirmation of the minutes on page 7 from our meeting, which was all the way back on 30th of July. Someone's happy to move those, please. Thank you, Roger. Second, Tony. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Declarations of interest start on page 13. Just a reminder to check those regularly and step aside from anything in which you may have a real or perceived conflict of interest in. Moving now again to page 16, community and promotions grants applications with Ali and Rebecca. Welcome. Thank you. I know a lot of work has gone into this. Everybody always says it, Dylan.
Thank you. I've got some, just a couple of general opening statements and then I'll speak to community grants and Ellie will talk to promotions grants. So just want to acknowledge that the purpose of grants, which is to enable the board to support all the amazing activity and groups across the board. And you've heard so many of them this morning through the public forum. And often though, what the community board grants do is leverage funding for those groups and organisations to then apply to other funders or fundraisers and enable a much greater amount of activity than what the fund that the board has contributed to directly. Often also the community board can fund things that other funders won't fund, such as operating costs. So that's quite unique. It's quite good that the funders work in together to try and support the bits that others don't do. For annually, the Vincent Community Board and its community grants pot has $120,000 to distribute to community grants. This round we've received a total of 7 applications, requesting a total of 234,749, so quite oversubscribed. Grants, we've received requests for more funding than we have available, and I've just got some comments on specific applications if you don't mind. Puna Rangitangi have requested a $4,000 increase. They have not received an increase since at least 2012, so you've been funding them at $6,000 for at least 12 years. And so I haven't recommended any increases, but if you were of a mind to look at one, that would be one that I would look to, just given that 12-year difference in an increase. The pipe van's also seeking an increase. I'm recommending that stays at 2,500. The board increased its grant to that figure in 2012. AVMI is seeking an increase of 68,000. I've recommended that funding remain at 82,000. It received, haven't quite got the date, but it was within the time of veto grants. But it was only a small increase, and so what the application reflects is the cost of the service, and so they say that quite clearly in the application. I'm happy to answer any questions. Lower Mannerburn, I've got a couple of things to say on that. So we received the letter of support from the Reserve Subcommittee, and I managed to include that into supporting papers. Those additional letters of support I came through this morning. I haven't had a chance to look at those, but we will ensure that they're attached to the paperwork so they are part of the record. The ORC grant, we have, the ORC came with us on our funding clinic round this in August, and we suggested to the ORC that in future they seek permission from the landowner prior to awarding grants, so that we don't end up in the situation where they have awarded funds subject to something that may or may not occur, and that it should, and DOC's in a similar position where a grant has been given for an activity that hasn't received permission to take place, and that's just not a great way of doing things. So it's been the first round for ORC of that eco fund, and so they're learning as they go. So that's just some feedback that we've gone. That aside, when we assess grants, we talk to the departments that have an interest in the area, in this case the Parks Department, who have, as you know, there are 2 reports on the agenda today about that particular reserve and the potential for a reserve management plan, so that planning for large scale activity like is proposed in that particular application is done in a more planned way. But again, it's a recommendation for you to consider and decide as you will. They have got a bank account now. That was one of my worries, is last time we funded them, they didn't have that, but they now do. So it's there is an ability to pay instead of going into private accounts, which is good. The toy library, just on that one, they initially applied for 12,000 for 3 years. I said that because it's the end of the long-term plan year, I've said we could only consider 1 year, so it's 4,000 of that 12. Of the 4, I'm recommending, I can't remember, 1,500. Sorry. And I've recommended that because based on the rates and the insurance, sort of a contribution towards that rather than the salary cost. But again, that's just my thoughts. They have been fundraising, but it was just thinking from a board point of view, what activity for that group do you want to support? So that was just my rationale. But happy to answer any questions and any others.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Promotions grants. As you know, for our March round, we had $76,000 worth of applications to your $50,000 budget for the year. So that grant was fully committed in that funding round. At this meeting, as well as the 2 applications we're covering in this report, we've also got the later application that came in from Otago Cricket. So you've got another roughly $22,000 worth of applications sitting on the table. So unusually, that means that you've looked at applications totaling almost $100,000 for a $50,000 pot for this current financial year. So it's quite a significant shift in that promotions application space. Because there are no funds, of course, my recommendation has been to decline. There were a couple of other applicants that voiced interest in making an application when it was explained to them that they can still do so, but there was no funding. They chose not to, and those were the Central Otago AMP show and World Series adventure race that is going to be run through the region. Just as a bit of background. And saying there's no funding, I have to admit that both the applications you're considering here, in fact all 3, do have some merit. And if there was funding available, they would be ones that I would be looking to see if there was some way of funding. The Alexandra BMX Club, the only thing that I would say, if we look at our destination management plan and our event, what are we calling it, Bill? Framework. That's it. We're looking at massaging events, so there's more of a spread. Some of these events can't shift because of the national calendars. So the BMX Club would be an example of that. Winter Stella, Andy had submitted 2 separate applications. When Rebecca and I looked at those, we brought the application for Night Sky activation into the promotion space. That application, although Andy has confused me because I'm not sure now what he's wanting. So,
a letter.
Yeah.
A letter. Yeah.
Whether we still need the funding or not. I think the key thing is that there has at this point been no discussion with the planning department, and it would be a case of the board indicating whether they're they do have a level of support for those initiations of discussions to proceed. That's what I got. I think that's it for those two.
So, Chris, so on that, so what are the ramifications to the planning department?
We can't provide that advice. We need to, staff would need to go away and,
We'll talk to that
yeah.
with Dave, shortly, what that looks like.
We've given a copy of the resolution, of the draft resolution and the decision-making table, for Wayne. Those are delivered.
Right, any questions?
More of a statement, I guess.
Okay, any questions? Right away, stay.
Okay, it was more around the Alexandra Museum of, oh, sorry. Obviously, this comes up every funding round, or every year. And is it time that we seriously look at this just being a line item in the same way we've discussed this around the Blossom Festival?
So there's going to be a workshop later today to talk about grants.
Yeah.
And I think when you're in an LTP, you consider multi-year funding. And so next year will be a 2-year LTP, so you could consider 2-year funding. And so that would be the opportunity to look at AMI, probably is the one in your bucket that would be suitable for that.
And Blossom Festival, that conversation came up along.
Yeah, I think that's what for the workshop.
Have that later. So.
Any other questions or comments before we kick into each one? Because I would like to look at each one. We can. Really want to get into page 4 of the separate attachment, the grants attachment, where Rebecca has very only, I'm guessing because you have organised them into this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just remembered to include it this time. Last time I forgot to include.
That is now, if based on the available amount for distribution at the moment, and total recommended, we would have $28,000 left over for a grants round that would be in
March, close March with deliberations in May.
and we will also be having a conversation around, I guess, what grants look like going forward, but that would come as part of the long-term plan process. So assessing these grants, we can only do under the current policy settings that we have, recognising that they may not be fit for purpose when we get into the long-term plan next year. And I think also it's important to acknowledge the huge amount of pressure that these pots have come under, but also the pressure that's on our communities to come up with these pots in the first place. So Puna Rangatahi, they have requested $10,000 out of a full operational budget, $309,000, and have not had an increase since 2012, which I don't know if you can get anything for the same price now as you could in 2012. So the amount recommended is 6,000. I guess one thing that we did in the last promotions round was that we fully expended the $50,000 in one round, and we are seeing the ramifications of that now, where we have applications that have come to us that, as Ellie has pointed out, have merit, but there is no money in the pot. There is, of course, the ability for us to expend the pot in this round, recognising that a number of requesters have not been recommended with the full amount that they have requested, but that would then eliminate the ability for there to be a second round. So I guess, is anybody at this point looking to use the entire pot, that remaining $28,000, or would you like to see a second round in March for a small?
I think we need to have a second round, but I think with some impacts from the promotions grant today, that be unwise to spend everything.
You know, like really Jane, not maybe good that we look at later, maybe something else.
The name isn't because we don't know what we don't know.
No.
Yeah.
And I get that the benefit of seeing in black and white in front of us what happens when you spend it all. Right, so the amount requested for Puna Rangatahi is $10,000 and the amount recommended is $6,000. Are people comfortable with that amount? Yes, no, maybe. Do you want to just sit on it momentarily and go through each one, and you can say if there's anything in particular that comes up, and then at the end we can have a decide. Alexandra District's Pipe Band Inc., which is financial assistance with the hall hire costs. They've requested $3,000 and the amount recommended is $2,500. Anybody got any comment on that at this point? Central Storage Museum and Art Gallery. Requested amount is 150,000, but they acknowledge that that's the cost of running it as opposed to the cost that is recommended, which is 82,000, which is what they received last year. Does anybody have any comments on that at this time?
You know, like everyone expects to go up, I'd love to see it increase, but the reality of the money that we've got, let's say where it is.
Lower Mannerburn Reserve Working Group have requested just shy of $11,500, and the amount recommended for the reasons outlined from Rebecca is that that not be funded at this point. Does anybody have comments on that? Not at this time. I guess for me, I think that that is an exceptionally worthwhile project, and I love that regular community members have gotten in behind that. I think this board has seen the frustrations and challenges that can come from getting on and doing things without a reserve management plan, and that maybe following that process, while it's not going to be entirely helpful for the group in uplifting the Otago Regional Council grant that they have been allocated, that following that process is probably going to be the best outcome for our communities. Does anybody have any comments on that?
What's the time horizon for getting that over the line?
When do we anticipate that? Yeah, for
I guess it's up for consideration to that for you guys to approve for it to start. And then it's, I mean,
the time frame.
probably going to be around 12 months. I would suggest, you know, to be able to achieve that by the time it goes out, goes for consultation, or whatever that kind of stuff. But I'd suggest it be something. Yeah,
Super quick
yeah.
process.
I probably wouldn't want to give a quoted timeline, but that would be, you know, be somewhere around there, I'd suggest.
I think we should give something, even though it's not anywhere near the total amount that would be requested. I think we've got to show as a board that we are supportive of this initiative.
The grant that has been received in the Otago Regional Council is just for plants. I think Nigel said in his nodding. Thank you. In terms of the removal of pine trees, which would need to happen for plants in the first place, no money is set aside for that. And there's nothing on the horizon from the wilding pine.
Given there's still the conversations that are going to be coming later in this meeting, you know, there's still 30 grand sitting in the budget for that reserve. Is there any way we could be looking at using some of that?
That'd be probably a discussion for this group, you know, to have that's, and you've got that paper to consider. But
it's a really cool. I get the frustration. I think a lot of us are frustrated with this one. But
so there is
there a way we could, if it's not through this grants process, looking at budget that already exists for the reserve?
Probably be the easiest to bring a very specific paper to that back to this board, and then what's that? What are we now, September? Till it'll be done, fine, but
very fine.
Yeah, probably be option.
Potentially achievable in the time frame.
I'm just trying to get creative here. And find a way forward for this group because they're doing an amazing job, and I agree with Roger, we need to be supporting.
At that one momentarily. Alexandra Toy Library, operational expenses, which Rebecca has tagged to insurance, council rates, electricity and internet, as opposed to wages.
Yeah, it was really to the costs rather than the wages.
Yeah. And they have requested $4,000 and the recommendation is $1,500. Any comments on that? And then the Winterstellar Charitable Trust,
That one, this is the withdrawn one.
they
So
have withdrawn that and instead
there's
of that one,
yeah.
and the other one. And he's just asking for a letter.
Just on the withdrawn application for the observatory, the application was that we needed to, we asked for a funding plan to demonstrate how the total cost would be able to be met. And it was just too soon to be able to do that, so, yeah, whether they come again.
Perfect. No, that's fine. Thank you. Right. So the total recommended to spend from the $120,000 pot is $92,000. Are there any amounts allocated to those different applicants that people would like to query, question or amend? Or are we happy? In which case, perhaps someone would like to move on.
We've got nothing on the side of our name, didn't we?
No, we don't.
Now we're gonna need to do some and come back to it.
Well, we would need to discuss that now.
Right. Yeah, I'd suggest a contribution or something.
My only worry is the challenge of allocating money to something when we haven't come up with a reserve management plan that's been approved by our community. We would then be allocating money to a project, a specific project, without a plan that the community has seen. Not to say that it's not a worthwhile project that the community may wholeheartedly support, but that would be us making the decision outside of that process.
I'd argue though that they've already been doing that for a period of time.
Different scale.
True, different scale, but they're still been doing it. Regardless of the fact that we don't have a reserve management plan for it. I think I'd be more comfortable with saying no in the community grant, but had this conversation in regards to the future of that reserve.
Yes, is coming.
Which is next.
You didn't have a question from the floor. I'll take it.
Thanks, Sam. And look, the letter of agreement from CODC allows us to access about the same amount of money to get on with whatever we're allowed to do.
Yeah.
And so if nothing else, this process, has been a petition to ask us for a letter of support from the CODC.
Thank you. Are people happy to consider Nigel's request for a letter of support in the very least as part of the next?
Yeah.
We can talk about that as part of the next item. Happy with that? Consistent?
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to move them as they are then.
Okay, thank you, Jaden. Seconded, thank you, Di. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Promotions grants. There is. Do you have the price to move those and then talk about the promotions ones? Yeah. So move Jaden and seconded.
And so,
We now move on to the promotions grants. So
the G.
we don't need to put anything about that on the screen before. So G.
HI, that is,
Promotion signs. Yeah.
if the recommendations were to be followed.
Yep. And that was the one that we had asked for a letter of support. That would need to be that twice in a separate report. Yeah. So there's no money in the promotions pot. if we wanted to allocate money, it would need to go to council.
Yeah.
Also don't have money in there.
They can pull from reserve, which has been done past.
Acknowledging that, does anybody want to amend question and or otherwise query the amount recommended, which is that those projects are not funded at this time?
So what we can comment about the,
It would have to go to council. Council doesn't have money in that pot either. It would have to come from reserves. Okay, is someone happy to move? Thank you, Roger. Seconded Guy. All those in favour? It's carried. Do we want to add, please, actually weighing down the bottom? Do we need to add in there a request for a report to come back to this board with the ability to discuss a letter of support for the winter scale Dark Sky International?
Fly.
I'm not blind, there we go. There's a report to come back to the board to consider a letter of support for Dark Sky International accredited area. So Dark Sky International accredited area. International.
Sorry.
So take out one and just out. Take out Winter Scout and bring an international Dark Sky Reserve. And international.
And Alex. Is the,
No, it's the whole of the
We can only cover the BCB,
VCB, you're in the whole.
maybe can put BCB and then we can Vincent Ward, Vincent Ward, the dream work, makes the dream work. If we could report back to the board, we can get that letter of support for an international Dark Sky Reserve and Vincent Ward. Thank you, and I have been. Yeah, like to move that, thank you, Roger, seconded. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much for your work on this. I suspect that in the coming months and years, there will be more and more difficult conversations about who gets what from a diminished. Shall I? I think you probably should. Separate item, is it on the bottom? Back to your main agenda.
Yeah.
Page 21. Otago cricket.
You got the two reports. So the initial report that you're going to look at is the report back, which I can already talked to previously, where they explained the costs of actually having a televised cricket match and how they spent that grant. And that's just a requirement of the grant policy at the level of funding that they received. So we're happy with that. Should be simple.
Does anybody have any questions on that accountability report? No? Happy to move that that report be received. Second that. Thank you, Roger. All those in favour? Against? Carried. And then on to the grant application, page 2.
So, yes, unfortunately, I think just due to assuming that the initial discussions around the multi-year funding had been applied in the funding round, the application has come in late, so hence we're seeing this as a separate report. Again, just asking for the board support for the infrastructure that's required so that they can televise those games, and that's the towers and the site screens. And again, it's an event that is locked into that peak of their season, and that does allow them to have those games here with pretty good patronage, I believe. Yeah, no funding. The option is simply a request to council if you choose that this is an event that you would see that should be supported.
Challenging times. Thank you, Ellie. Any comments coming yet at this time? I think it is a great event for our community, especially our holiday community who come here and like to have something to look forward to on a beautiful sunny day, and on a rainy day they can go to Central Stores. I guess this is the reality of the way that the funding rounds work at the moment. There is no money in the pot, and I don't know that this board is willing to put that to council for us and to fund any reserves at this time. I'm happy to move that the recommendations A and B. So is it James happy to second that?
Not happy, but willing to.
Okay, well, that's a very good point, thank you. Is there any further discussion on that? Steve, I thought that was weird because the grant's not approved, they just come in. Any further discussion?
They did highlight the international coverage of it through our tourist and promotions policy, I suppose. Really joined hands with them the best we can with that.
Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Dylan?
No, I think it's great that there's additional coverage. Not really markets that we're seeking to have directly come in with Centro Target. I think any coverage is great coverage, but primarily we're a domestic market. And that's where we enjoy getting good coverage.
I guess I wasn't looking at that level, I was looking at the next level down for the commercial people to benefit.
Yeah, but I think we don't know enough about what the coverage is and what's providing us.
So they moved and seconded. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dean. I know that it's not easy to bring us because you're the one speaking to people, and they are worthwhile projects. And it'd be nice if we had a really big pot. I don't think I won a lot on Saturday night, so no, I can't even contribute to the pot. Thank you. But I would ask, sorry, Lena, if you could put it out there. My kids use that BMX track and I'm happy to contribute. So if you can make a way for that to happen.
Thank you, Tamara. We do have a signage person coming to look at the track tomorrow, so I'll add this great discussion.
Thank you. Thank you for those who attended the public forum. We now move very much. Page 35. Manaburton Recreation Reserve Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You can stay here, yes, and you can turn the board at the other end, welcome, board.
Thank you. Thanks. So this, we've talked, the board's been aware of the, I guess the reserve, the Manaburton Recreation Reserve Committee's been in existence since over 37 years. Is that right? So from August 1997. So they have managed the reserve on behalf of the community over those years, and Barry's been on that ever since, and he's in the not audience, public gallery today. So I think the committee owe a great deal of thanks to that community, that committee who've steered the reserve along over the years when councils really hasn't had a focus on it, and I think the original reason that the committee got established was because the council was thinking of disposing of it at the time. So they are a subcommittee of council, of this committee of council, so they've indicated that they no longer wish to continue in that capacity, and that seeking this board's recommendation to council that they get removed from the delegations register at the next opportunity. Happy to answer any questions on that.
Thank you.
The, that committee, subcommittee has a pot of, I think, $30-something thousand. What happens to that money if the subcommittee is dissolved?
So that sits in in the board, in a reserve fund for this board, for that mandatory dam reserve funds. I think there's, projected to be about 30,000 there at the moment. That gets used for the reserve.
Yeah.
So the next paper is promoting that management plan, and that out of that falls a development plan for the reserve. So the reserve is developed along the lines how the community wishes that to happen, and getting one drawn up is would use some of that money, most of that money up probably, and if there's any left, then that can be put towards the actual whatever priorities come out of that plan. Failing that, then to do that, if that money's not there, then the council would put that into a LTP and it would be part of the overall rates impact, I guess. Be a capital project through the rates LTP process. And at the moment, it's been gathered up over the years, so it's not a rate, there's not an impact on rates as it's spent. But once it's spent, there will be an impact on rates. Other needs to be undertaken, and that is it.
Earlier on in the meeting, we discussed the removal of the wilding pines, so could that partly be earmarked for that process?
It could be. So as part of deliberations with the LCP process, I've put some money in that for the board to consider, but we're not quite there yet. So when that happens, so we need substantially more 30 grand to get rid of the wilding pines at current rates from removing pines, and it's a difficult site as well. But that would go some way towards that requirement. And if the government or some other agency come up with some co-funding, then yeah, that would go a long way towards a lot better outcome.
Any other questions? Yes, I would like to acknowledge Dr. Wells here in the room for your time, effort and energy here along with the rest of the board. And I guess it highlights to the substantial amount of effort that goes in behind the scenes into the meetings and the minutes and the keeping up to date with the paperwork, which has been acknowledged as a barrier to some for participation. So it is greatly appreciated that you have, I guess, saved that reserve from whatever may have happened back in 1997, and that it's still well able to be utilised today, including for ice skating for the first time in many years, which is incredibly exciting.
And curling.
And curling, and curling. And it's also a much warmer place to swim in the summer. Than some of the other places where you want children in Mokopuna might like to be going in the summer.
But I'll just comment that bird keeping has been achieved in a long 5 years. His wife has just passed. Maybe a good idea just to, perhaps acknowledge that.
Absolutely.
In some way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just to make the views this Wednesday.
Wonderful, thank you for that. Can I have someone to move recommendations A, B, and C? Thank you, Roger. Second, Tony. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carries. And remaining with the reserve. It's on, wonderful.
Yeah, well, with attention today.
Notice of intention to prepare a reserve management plan for the Mandarin Dam Recreation Reserve. 45.
So I guess that has already been talked about around the table previous side, agenda items, the reserve really should have a reserve management plan done on it. So the community has input into the future of that reserve. And it's quite a big reserve for one of the board larger reserves actually. Put a little bit of a history in there, so it's also got a slightly complicated history of how it's come about, and recreation activity on is actually a secondary purpose, which is also quite unusual for a reserve. Normally it's a primary purpose, but that primary purpose is for water, irrigation water. The reserve also has a number of, I shouldn't say conflicting, but number of different uses. Some are more friendly to the reserve than others, I guess. You've outlined a couple of them, like swimming, skating, and then more on the water. But then there's a wetland at the top, and then there's a bit of a mountain bike track, and there's people are buying four-wheel drive tracks, and then we've got a problem with rolling pine. So there's quite a lot going on this reserve that I think would pay for us to have some communities a steer on from the community, I guess. And what I'm proposing is that instead of just developing a draft, we go out and seek some suggestions first in the first phase, which we don't use very often, but that's an option for us under the Reserves Act. And then we would prepare a draft management plan and come back to the board here for going out for public consultation. That consultation period would be for 2 months. And the board would hear submissions and make any amendments to the plan, and that would then be approved by the board, and they would request council under its delegation from the Minister of Conservation to approve that management plan. So yeah, the timeline was mentioned earlier, not quite sure. It'd be nice to have a draft by late this year, early next year, to go out for consultation. So it would be the first next year before we actually get something to place it. And now, and as I alluded in the previous report, I think it would be useful to have a development plan for the whole reserve to fall out of that. So that, and that should also be publicly consulted on, so the community, know what the community want to do with that reserve, because the management plan is policy and direction, where the development plan will be at the doing side of things, like do we allow four-wheel driving through there? Yes or no? Yeah, no. Come take the pines down. Let's look at the plan of how we're going to do that. The revegetation, how we work with community groups like the Friends Group, and things like that. So I think that would be good to get the community more engaged in the reserve. We know a lot of people use it, and potentially some would use it. So I think to get those sort of things up and running, and then just the other things about rabbit control, pest management, ongoing plantings, water facilities. We need, do we need toilets? Do we need other facilities out there as well? So there's quite a lot to think about as well for that reserve to make it sort of a successful community jewel, I suppose. Yeah. So happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, so with your initial suggestion phase you talked about, are you under targeted groups or you?
Yeah, we'll target like for these two guys behind and others as well, because we know a lot of other users are out here. And we'll put stuff in the paper, but on social media and things like that. So we'll see what we can get.
If you had hopes to get it in by Christmas.
Yeah, so the month for that,
smaller rather than larger.
yeah, the month for that suggestion phase, and then there's a then we need to prepare stuff. So it's quite better.
Is the month the minimum time required for a suggestion phase?
Yeah, under the fact.
But there are a lot of uses, and not all of them are compatible.
No, and that's will be really good to go through this process and see what comes out of that actually, and how we can make it all work if we can. And if we can't, it's going to be, it might be science saying no, whatever. Yeah, or we put in barriers and things, but that's all, need to fund that as well going forward.
And I guess that's where our responsibilities for the reserve fall into play, including things like pest management and complying with our other policies.
Yeah.
Well, that's everything you want to problems out there.
So what, sorry?
Lighting, people don't rush.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to get your eye.
Yeah. Gotcha.
At one stage, there was talk of the Motorhome Association using a section of that, back from the water's edge for overnight stays. Now, has that led to anything at all?
No, it hasn't. I think I said that here before. We haven't progressed that. This process will progress that one way or the other, I guess. And part of what we were waiting for originally was a change to the freedom camping bylaws, which has happened. And whether council which decide early next year whether they have a bylaw for camping as well. At this stage, we have the I guess the instances to really drive a bylaw, but we're going to monitor those come summer again and see if there's instances that need us to have a bylaw and then work out enforcement processes. So no, that hasn't progressed, but I assume we'll get some feedback on that as part of this process. So,
yes, you envisioning that most of that 30,000 would be used up in this process?
Yes, well, yes, it would, but we need to get somebody in to help formulate all the community ideas into a plan or make some workshops and things to do that as well. And then draw up some plans, with a variety sort of listings that the board would be involved in. Then part of that would go through the long-term plans as well, how to fund that.
Probably not fully clear on how much it could take up.
No,
you said the advertising, things like that. No. Yeah.
Do we anticipate that part of this plan will involve native planting in some way, shape or form? And whether this board would be willing and able, I don't know if we are able to give a letter of support. I acknowledge that in the past, some other groups have purchased plants from the likes of Waihaeapa and then just had them growing on for a period of time. Whether that would be a way for the group who's put a lot of effort into accessing the Eco Fund from ORC to be able to have some plants on hand for planting on that reserve in the future.
Yeah, I'd say that is definitely part of the plan because the vegetative parts of that reserve should be an essential part of the development plan.
That would be a decision for the board.
Yeah.
I think staff would recommend in line with, with legislation and things, but that's the board wants to have that conversation. Yeah.
I think it's worthwhile conversation because it's just such a weird situation. We've got a group wanting to help. It's not going to cost us anything, yet we're going to go through this process, spend money to do a plan for it, and then probably have to spend more money afterwards when we've got them sitting in there. It's just a frustrating situation. Yeah.
I think the plan is a holistic plan for the reserve. So that's what we're talking about, not parts of that. So
Would that need to come as a separate paper? Or could it be a recommendation as part of this that the board would be supportive of native plantings on the reserve in the future in line with the outcomes of the reserve management plan?
Question, how we do to that one, would that be an individual or is it something like that as a resolution?
It would be covered.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would have thought that would be covered on the fact of the whole.
And then, yeah. So essentially you're asking for something outside of what we're recommending. And so there would either be a separate resolution or a separate paper, I guess, to come to this board like you've done for the night sky.
Yes.
Yeah.
Could it potentially be a paper that comes back prior to when November? When's the next meeting? Either on October.
Yeah. Yeah, October. Yeah.
Which is fine, having it said. If we can sit here and acknowledge that the outcome of a reserve management plan is likely to include native plantings in some way, shape or form.
Yeah.
And we have the ability for a group who's interested in planting them to access those plants via a grant in the short term future.
I don't have that meeting to hand you.
Yeah, something like that. The 26th of night.
of October.
29th.
And when's the due date?
November.
So for 3 weeks. Yeah.
Is that like an anarchy for part of the story about the family and falling down?
Well, no, I'm not saying that they get planted, but that they can access them and where they might sit, potentially it's just, that was what they get at Haiata when we visited, was a number of plants that had been purchased for planting once approval was granted.
I'm actually going to get this report to next meeting because I feel this is Nigel's third meeting coming to us with the exact same topic.
He's committed.
He is committed, and it feels like we're just gone
If we put it in as a resolution to have consider that report at the next meeting. That be.
Why can you remove that?
So we say that the board will consider a report or a letter of support.
Yes. As D.
Yeah. For the land burned in. Working group.
The review committee has been supported long on this sort of farming going on in New Zealand. I'd hate to see a whole lot of bureaucracy feeling this way, continue to sort of. We're supporting what these guys are doing and I'd love to see that continued. Without, confounding the issue too much. Which is, I guess,
You're aware of where you are then.
We are trying.
This one.
Yeah, working groups. Do we need to highlight that? As it plans, as it comes up.
You're on my narrative.
Yes.
Because the funding application from the OIC is dependent on a management agreement
Okay.
with council. And so it's really about that. So I think it's a request report regarding the of support. Gordon, I'm just saying that the funding application from the ORC is dependent on a management agreement. And so I think it's more than a letter of support. I think the report needs to be about a possible management agreement that you could then have to say about planting.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, request a report regarding a management agreement with the lower management, and that could incorporate the suggestion that we've made.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's just add some more from Christine. Yeah. Okay, request a report regarding management agreement with the lower Manaburn working group. Potential.
But the word potential means I suppose they're just going to draw it out to another meeting.
According to determined.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
to the next meeting of the board. Okay.
Sweet. Easy as that.
It means we've got 6 weeks to figure out how that might work.
Yeah.
No pressure. I hope you didn't have a holiday planned.
I have now.
Decline. All right, it seems like that's probably the best that we can do in the interim to see what may or may not happen prior to mid-November. Mover and seconder.
Oh, I can move A, B, C, and D.
Thanks, Jaden. And seconder, Roger. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you for your patience, Nigel. We'll see you at the end of October.
See you next time.
Right. Moving now to the attachment, road stopping. Sorry, I was just finding what the terminology was. Welcome, thank you, and Lourdes.
Morning. I'll take this report as read, and this is to consider a proposal to stop and sell from Swindon Street and the unnamed legal road. If you have a look at figure 5, it basically pertains to the areas marked A, which is the 317 metres squared of the unnamed unformed legal road, and then B, C, and D, which is the unformed legal road of Swindon Street. That's looking at that will address all the encroachments that are along Swindon Street, as well as the one in the back on the unnamed legal road. Using the U and excellence.
Yes, so that should be reasonably self-explanatory. Attached to your report, you've got the application for the proposed road stopping. The applicants had indicated an interest to come to the public forum, but they only indicated that today, so we didn't have enough time. Clearly, this is a report that is a recommendation to council, so they will attend at the council public forum on the 25th of September. So we have organised that with them. What they wanted to raise was contained in clause 13 of their request, which is around, they've asked that we waive them having to pay their portion of the costs. As you'll see in the report, that is policy that the applicant pays the costs. They have outlined some reasons why they don't believe that they should pay the costs, including that they think this is a different situation, and they've talked about hardship. They've talked about the fact that this has been occurring over a number of years, and basically is a long-standing issue, and references the fact, the legal references the fact that there is buildings over, that this building's been allowed to go over boundaries. What I'd just like to say is it is always the owner of the building's responsibility to identify where their boundaries are, and that an owner of a property rather, that is when they purchase it. So they need to determine where the boundaries are when they purchase it. Clearly, LIMS now have aerial photography, so that's a much easier thing to do, but you can do a boundary identification if you've got concerns about where the locations of the boundaries are. And in the event that you apply for a building consent and you lodge a site plan and you show us where the boundaries are, it is your responsibility on the ground to know where those boundaries are. So if the council signs off a building consent that shows the building is so much distance from the boundary, and then it's built over a boundary because it isn't identified on the ground, that is the responsibility of the owner. So what we're saying at this point is that we do not believe this is different than any other road stopping. Where there are encroachments, there are a number of them across the district that you will have seen, and so have other boards and so the council. We can address this more thoroughly in the report to council, and they will be attending the public forum as I've mentioned.
Second question.
Just as a matter of interest, are there survey pegs in either the true boundaries or the true corners, I could say, or the corners as assumed by the residents?
I don't know if there are in this case, Roger. And that's what we always ask when we have this situation. Were you able to identify survey pegs? And quite often that is a good way of sort of lining it up and knowing where the boundary is. And if not, we would always recommend, if people are uncertain, that they get a surveyor to do that for them.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? In that case, and acknowledging the comments by Louise from the applicant, and that this is a recommendation to council, I'm happy to move A, B, and C. Somebody's happy to second those. Thank you, Tony. All those in favour? Against? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, back to the main agenda. Big one, welcome Tara to talk about the Molyneux Stadium. Do you want to go through the report first? Or do you want to have a conversation about it first?
Oh, we can have a conversation if you like.
Only in that this report relates to a significant investment of Vincent Community Board reserves and discussing whether the Molyneux Stadium is refurbished or rebuilt or made safe or earthquake strengthened. And in 2 weeks' time, council will be having a discussion about districtisation, which would also cover the Molyneux Stadium and whether the board would like to see what the outcome of that discussion and decision at council is prior to us having this conversation. And of course, I would like for it to be left on the table, Wayne, until the next meeting, if that is possible, please. Oh, madam.
It's just mentioned a minute ago. Agrees to leave the item to lie on the table until the outcome of the districtisation discussion is known. It's a responsible thing to do.
Thank you. The only question I had on that, Tara, is the building still safe and fit for purpose in the meantime?
Yes.
Yep. Mover and seconder for leaving it on the table. Thank you, Tony and Di. All those in favour? Ian, carried. Thank you very much. Saskia, welcome. We're going to talk about the long-term plan timeframe, which will be great because we've already this time this morning. So
excellent. So a really short members. So I won't take much of your time. It's really just to let you know the critical touch points coming up for the community board. So as you're well aware, we have got the districtisation conversation happening, but regardless, there is going to be community board involvement in what is happening in your ward. So we are starting to get early direction from council. So those workshops start on Wednesday. They're just sort of really high level initial direction on some of the big stuff in the budget. So I'm taking, for example, my group's up, which covers things like governance and IS 3 waters is up. But what we will do is obviously get initial direction, but we'll have conversations with you starting at the 29th of October when your meeting starts with you. And then what we will be doing is obviously getting the feedback, and our intention is at this stage still to bring formal reports in December for the board. So we'll see how that works with districtisation. But I say regardless, there is involvement just before. Any questions?
it is reasonably self-explanatory, especially when it comes with a lovely picture. Yes, where we are, where we're heading. Any comments, questions otherwise? Perfect, thank you. And that case, I'm happy to move that the report be received. Thank you, Tony. Happy to second that. All those in favour? It's carried. Thank you. We'll give them a moment. I'll run back. We're next up to the mayor's report, but maybe I'll just have his lunch and we'll move to the chair's report if that's all right, mate. Oh, no, he's the end. He's just getting. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot that. Right, sorry, apologies.
Do you want to go? Let's go first.
No, I'm good. I ran out of power and then I needed a cup of tea. But quite closely related, thanks. Right. Here's something I prepared earlier. Apologies. I'll find it. Righty-ho. I had the joy of attending, opening and firing off the first ball at the inaugural Paulburn School Haddock Golf Tournament on Saturday in absolutely appalling conditions. A hardy bunch of 17 teams went out, around 10 diabolical holes in the Nicholson farm in the valley, and the holes have been created by Cam, but the actual end bits, the holes were actually created by and the tees were created by the school children at Paulburn School. So one that I really enjoyed watching people tee off was the top of a round hay bale. So, you know, there was fraught with peril between the howling winds and swinging a golf club with varying degrees of skill. It was hugely enjoyable. So well done to them. And I imagine we might see that picked up by other fundraisers around the area. Great pleasure to see work progressing on Te Whare Puka Puka on the lower Tarbert Street. Looking forward to completion of this work, and I've been in and out of the temporary library a number of times at Central Stories, picking up and dropping off books, and they're doing a great job in there, and always a smile on their faces. And what must be challenging circumstances, so well done to your team, David. Waidawa Manukau Kia is getting off to a very strong start. So this is a group that's received significant, to the tune of $1.9 million of government funding, following the success of the Thompsons Creek wetland programs, which will be focusing on connecting our community through the Manukau River and carrying out environmental work to help improve and enhance this unique and special resource. Tracy and I both sit on the governance group for that organisation. I attended the mini whakatau for incoming Dunstan High School Principal Andrew King in July. Since seen him at a number of events, actually, including the CoLab Business Breakfast, so it's great to see him out making efforts to be so involved in the wider community. And it was one of those that he pointed out, somebody at schools worked out that if Dunstan High School was a nation, it would have got 54th in the Olympic Games, which is very impressive. And on the same week, I visited St Gerard's School Principal Julie Flannery, who told me that on that day, that the school had hit its highest roll ever. And I'm going back a wee bit now, but I did miss the last meeting, just noting I was at the opening of the new Central Health Building on Tarbert Street, and what a fantastic building that is, and what a great vote of faith in the Vincent area. And that's my report now.
Cool, thank you. Happy to move that we received that. And Jaden second that, thank you. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. We now move to my report. I attended a couple of districtisation meetings, one out in Ranfurly and one here in Vincent, which had a solid turnout, I thought, which was good. I went to a lovely lunch with Stu and Tracy out at St Bethan's at the Vulcan Hotel, which if you'd like to go somewhere for a nice lunch on a sunny day, it's a very enjoyable place to be, sat outside in the sun. I then attended the LGNZ conference in Wellington, went along to the Women in Local Government lunch, where the guest speaker was Nicola Willis, which was really interesting. There were some neat things came out of that conference, including, which I thought this board will like, the quote, control should be placed as near the people as possible. There should be an increasing local responsibility. And I would like to highlight that responsibility word, because it's not just for our communities or us to sit back and wait for things to happen. This board can drive the outcomes that we want to see for our communities, and I think that's going to be really important going forward. So everybody will have their thinking caps on with the great ideas, I'm sure. It was highlighted that councils in New Zealand spend $3.8 billion on infrastructure a year. That is not pocket change. We are making big decisions for our communities. There are more big bills coming. We're going to have to be creative in how we can address this issue, because as they say, you can't bet your way out of a revenue problem. So thinking about ways that we can make improvements for our communities that aren't just about handing over money, recognising that lots of what we do is about handing over money. I think that's going to be really important. And it was touched on that the housing crisis is actually a worldwide thing. It is not just Vincent, it is not just Central Otago, it's not even just New Zealand. Changing lifestyles means cities and towns need to adapt. And I think we're already starting to see a bit of that here. There is a demand for smaller section sizes. There is a demand for different types of houses, and how this community board and this council can facilitate some different ways of thinking. I think that's important, and we are always looking for those opportunities to be innovative, which is cool. And I attended a national security briefing here in the chamber with the Mayor and Sally Fineman, which is fascinating. So 3 bigwigs came in, first names only, because they highlighted that they are not like James Bond, and I didn't believe that. It was really interesting. They also provided a heap of booklets and access to, they now put out a lot more reports online where you can read about what's happening in terms of national security for New Zealand. They're a lot more transparent, just not with last names. It was actually really cool, and they sort of said, oh, you know, you'll think this is really boring, and the 3 of us were like, no, this isn't boring at all, this is great. So I will find those links to the resources that they had. I've got a couple of hard copies.
Yeah, we sent them last
We
week.
sent them last week. Perfect. No, great. I encourage you all to have a look because the way that New Zealand operates is changing, just like the rest of the world. And no doubt you'll have seen a whole heap of not great news in the national media lately. Lucky we live here in beautiful Central Otago, but we're certainly not immune to outside factors and influences. And if somebody tries to befriend you on Facebook and then asks lots of interesting questions about the Vincent Community Board, perhaps you should be making an email through to the National Security Council.
Are your reports sanitised or are they?
Some of it, and some of it was surprisingly open and transparent about what they've got going on. They do go around and do door knocking things on people's doors. They operate obviously in partnership with police a lot, but then they will have spooks out there. They might be having a coffee in Alexandra at the moment. They certainly travel around a lot. So yeah, it was really cool actually. And especially since you think that sort of stuff is only on the movies that would happen in New Zealand, and some of it is only on the movies, and some of it definitely does happen in New Zealand. So that's definitely worth being aware, if nothing else, about what the possibilities are. And then I also went out to the visit for the first time this time around the Riding for Disabled facilities at Equestrian Centre. They've moved into the old jockey club rooms with all their gear, which is great. They've got a lot more space for keeping all their saddles and bridles and helmets and all that sort of thing. I had a lovely ride out with Kerry Spain to help exercise the horses, which was great. It was really, really windy, and I did highlight to her that I am a fair weather rider, but she said it was fine because the horses are very safe. And yes, Rum was very good to me. He wasn't perturbed by the waving baby giraffe or the tarpaulins flapping about or the other horses down there. So yeah, I'm glad that that's the type of horse that we have our young riders on as well. That's kind of all I wanted to cover off at the moment. I'm happy to move that my report be received and to second that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Roger, would you like to bring us off with the members' report?
Right. Well, I chaired 2 Creative Writers Circle meetings, but it's a monthly meeting. Attended a meeting of the Central Otago District Arts Trust and also attended the AGM of the Central Otago District Arts Trust. Attended a meeting of the Alexandra District Museum Board. Attended a meeting of Keep Alexandra Clyde Beautiful. Attended a public meeting on districtisation, being mentioned earlier here. I performed with the Chamber Orchestra in Bannockburn and here in Alexandra, and I also assisted with the demonstration concert for the Saturday morning music classes that was held in Cromwell yesterday. Of course. A couple of mini meetings of the Blossom Festival, which seems to be on track pretty well. The participation stallholders, both food, beverage and arts. Been to the Bike Investors course here a fortnight ago, which is very worthwhile, and looking to push into the community and activate anybody and everybody of age and size. Promote Dunstan AGM, attended the districtisation workshop which the Mayor and Cameron and 2 weeks ago. Went to Andy Davies' Night Sky presentation at 89, which was fascinating and had a very good turnout. That's a really good perspective. That's more we are.
Thank you very much. Hi.
I attended meetings of the Alexandra Rugby Club and also the Alexandra Golf Club. I also helped the host the Otago Country Rugby team played against the Otago development team up at Molly Park, which we had a great crowd came along for that day, which was good. And also just been keeping in touch with my balance college.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay. So I contributed to an OET article about the tangi of Kingi Tuheitia late last week. Attended a meeting at ACOS, the districtisation meeting that's been discussed. Did a video call with Kate Goodsall from Radio New Zealand to discuss how they can, as a national broadcaster, work better with the not-for-profit sector and the event of emergencies. So very informative and looking forward to working with her more in the future. I attended the first part of the citizenship ceremony. I had a meeting of the Riverside Park Project Group and was also at the local government conference for the community board side of things. And I think the message I've taken away from that is localism is going to be what's best for the future for all of New Zealand, and that even if digitisation moves forward, our community boards will still be sitting in a much better position than a lot of the ones in the other parts of the country. There are many currently, there's many that might not even make it to the next election with representation reviews, so we are in a very good spot. And finally, I'd just like to congratulate the 23 out of 25 councils across the country that voted to maintain the Māori wards, and to really acknowledge the hard work of a lot of the young elected members across the country who were in the background really pushing on that. So congratulations to them.
Thank you very much, Jen. If you to remove the report to receive and second that, those in favour, against, carried. Lots happening. Right.
Just going to quickly
Jen.
down a side note on my note.
All right.
You mentioned RDA. For anyone that hasn't bought tickets yet, please do for the fashion show on the 14th of September.
Fashion show with a twist.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Status reports, has anybody got any questions or comments on that?
Just note it's good to see some movement on the boundary fence for cemetery.
Good.
Good work.
That's requested.
Teamwork. Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Anything else? Right, I'm happy to move those and Jackie will second that. All those in favour?
Yep.
Against, carried. Thank you very much. The date of the next meeting was the 29th of October, I think. And we now move to the resolution to exclude the public for the reasons given on page 159. I think we'll just wait and do that last bit. You have to do that. Yes, okay. Happy to move that. Glenn will second that. Thank you. Those in favour?
Yep.
Against, carried. Thank you very much, Joey.